This is a presentation on the movie Silver Lining Playbook, which focuses on bipolar disorder, made by Colleen, Hannah, Julia, and Callie. Silver Linings Playbook is about the main character, Pat, who is played by Bradley Cooper. He is serving out an 8-month sentence in a mental institution for severely beating the man he caught in the shower with his wife, Nikki, who now has a restraining order against him. When Pat is released to his parents, played by Robert De Niro and Jackie Weaver, he plans on rebuilding his life, and that includes getting his wife back. However, he does not realize the extent to which the restraining order has on his plan. Although Pat has his big dream of getting his life back together, his parents would just be happier if he shared their obsession with the Philadelphia Eagles and spent more time with them. Things get complicated when Pat meets Tiffany, who is played by Jennifer Lawrence. Tiffany offers to help him reconnect with his wife, but only if he will do something very important for her in exchange. The following video is a trailer of the movie Silver Linings Playbook.
What? Hey, what's this?
Didn't tell me you took him out.
The court said yes.
Yeah, but what did the doctor say?
Can I do an interview for a school project on mental illness?
No. I'm ready. I feel motivated. I don't feel so angry all the time. The whole time you're rooting for this Hemingway guy to survive the war and to be with the woman that he loves.
It's 4 o'clock in the morning, Pat.
I can't apologize. I will apologize on behalf of Ernest Hemingway, because that's who's to blame here.
Yeah, have Ernest Hemingway call us and apologize to us, too.
Pat, you have to have a strategy. I hate my illness, and I want to control it.
I hope you're okay with Veronica's sister coming over.
Tiffany and Tommy?
Just Tiffany.
What happened to Tommy?
He died.
How'd he die?
Please, don't bring it up.
Hey, Tiffany. Is this Pat?
You look nice.
Thank you.
How'd Tommy die?
No.
What meds are you on?
I used to be on lithium and Seroquel.
I was on Xanax.
You ever take Klonopin?
Klonopin. Yeah.
I guess I was.
I'm tired. I want to go. Are you going to walk me home or what?
You have poor social skills. You have a problem.
I have a problem? You say more inappropriate things than appropriate things.
Doc, she's crazy. Oh, what the hell? She knew where I was. She followed me.
Why don't you run somewhere else?
Calm down, crazy.
Maybe she just needs a friend.
You want to have dinner at this diner?
Pick me up at 7:30.
So how's your job?
I just got fired, actually.
Oh, really? How?
By having sex with everybody in the office.
Everybody?
I was very depressed after Tommy died.
We don't have to talk about it.
Thanks.
How many were there?
Oh, she's a mess. You gotta be careful. She does a lot of therapy.
I go to a lot of therapy. Am I messed up? I just gotta get a strategy, you know.
Me too. So there's this dance thing. I can only do it if I have a partner.
Oh, I'm not gonna dance with you.
So is this the girl you wrote about? You wrote about me? She's fine.
She is my friend with an F.
A capital F. She's fine.
For friend. What are you so up about?
I'm happy. Look, I'm my best self today, and I think she's her best self, and that's a good thing.
Lost in my mind. Lost in my mind. I know you don't want to listen to your father. I don't listen to mine. When life reaches out at a moment like this, it's a sin if you don't reach back.
This is what I believe to be true. You have to do everything you can, and if you stay positive, you have a shot at a silver lining.
Bipolar disorder is defined as manic episodes that bring severe high and low moods that affect sleeping patterns, energy, thinking, and the ability to carry out day-to-day tasks. Pat suffers from bipolar 1, where he experiences several manic episodes throughout the film. The following chart describes a few of the patterns that Pat goes through in bipolar 1 disease.
Patrick Solitano Jr. is around 30 years old. He's a male Caucasian. He was married, but his wife has a restraining order on him after he beat up the man she was having an affair with. He's currently unemployed, but previously worked as a substitute teacher before the incident that led him to an 8-month sentence to a mental hospital.
Under the signs and symptoms for Pat, he is under the delusion that he will mend the marriage between him and Nikki, despite the restraining order she has against him. Some quotes that he says is, "Getting back with Nikki is my thing, and I've been doing pretty well. And also, it's electric between us. Yeah, we want to change things about each other, but that's normal." He has irritable behavior, racing thoughts, rapid speaking. A lot of people mentioned that he had weight loss from when he was first admitted to the hospital. He has insomnia, and he has mood swings, elevated moods to anger and anxiety. And he reaches his low when he gets in fistfights. And he also has impulsive behavior, and he claims that he has weird thinking brought on by stress. Some more examples of the signs and symptoms of Pat are when he is seen running, he is inappropriately dressed, he's wearing a trash bag over his clothes, and he's always seen wearing sweatpants and a sweatshirt no matter what temperature it is. And he also has sleep patterns that are disturbed, and he has constant motor behavior, which can be seen in this video.
My wedding video.
It's after 3 o'clock. What are you doing?
I looked in here, but this is all your shit up here for your sewing and everything. Did you put it up here?
What about in your closet study?
Don't go in my study.
Dad, not now! Would you put it in here? Makes no sense for you to put it in here.
Patty, what are you doing?
He's got all his Eagles videos. We went in one video of my wedding. Is it here?
Patty?
It's probably in the attic.
Are you going in my study?
Feels to me like you want to hide my wedding video.
No,
You think I can't handle it?
Please stop yelling.
I'm not yelling, Mom. I'm just frustrated because I should have my fucking wedding videos.
Pat, you're gonna wake
I already
everybody.
looked all over the I'm not here. I'm not calming down. I don't give a fuck who you're. I'm not calming down. Anybody can wake up. I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not ashamed of it. Let the whole neighborhood wake up. I don't care.
Stop it!
No, Mom.
What's going on?
What? Hey, it's my wedding. It's my wedding video. Oh, I can't watch a video. No.
For relevant client history, Pat has support from his family and moves in with his father and mother after he's released from the mental institution. The family is middle class, but the father has had a gambling problem in the past, not making the most stable financial status for the family. Risk factors is biological because the father possibly has mental illness and has obsessive rituals and OCD tendencies. Family studies have shown that if one parent has bipolar disorder or other mental illness, the risk that the child will have the disorder is around 28%. Client strengths include running to work off his emotions, and he's very honest. And social supports includes therapy, Tiffany, and his friend Danny from the mental institution. For the DSM-5 diagnosis of bipolar 1, it requires at least one manic or mixed episode. In Pat's manic episode, he has decreased need for sleep, more talkative than usual, or pressure to keep talking, insomnia or hypersomnia, flight of ideas, distractibility, and increase in goal-directed activity.
Some of the medications that Pat is on are a regimen of lithium, Seroquel, and Abilify. Lithium is an anti-manic medication. Some side effects are increased thirst, poor concentration, impaired memory, hair loss. Most of the side effects appear in the first couple weeks of the treatment, but once the body adjusts, the side effects aren't as bad. Most of the side effects seen are not seen in Pat, but he does have impaired memory because he forgets his meeting with Tiffany and is distracted easily. He also doesn't concentrate very well. He has a flight of ideas. For Seroquel, it's an antipsychotic medication. Side effects are mood or behavior changes, stomach pain, dry mouth, trouble sleeping, and tiredness. And it's indicated for the maintenance treatment of bipolar disorder 1 as an adjunct to lithium. Pat experiences mood and behavior changes and has trouble sleeping. Abilify is also an antipsychotic medication. Some side effects are blurred vision, drowsiness, trouble swallowing, anxiety, insomnia, and some serious side effects are muscle spasms, seizures, and restlessness. Pat doesn't like taking his medication because he thinks it makes him feel foggy-headed. He says, I don't take them anymore. They make me feel foggy and they make me bloated. They put me on medication which I feel ashamed of. In the beginning scene at the mental institution, Pat is seen taking the medication and hiding it in his mouth and then spitting it out after the nurse looks. Pat says he doesn't need his medication because he's not the explosion type guy. He also states that it makes him think clearer when he doesn't take his medication.
After using the mental status exam to assess Pat, we observed that his appearance was neat, his speech was tangential, his eye contact was normal, his motor activity was restless, and he had a full effect. His mood was euthymic, he was anxious and irritable, he had no orientation impairments and no memory loss, his attention was distracted, he had no hallucinations but did have derealization. He had no suicidal thoughts and no thoughts of hurting others. He had grandiose delusions. His behavior was hyperactive and aggressive. He has fair insight and fair judgment.
The first nursing diagnosis is risk for violence, self-directed or other-directed. It's related to impulsivity, manic excitement, and rage reaction, as evidenced by beating his wife's lover. Our assessment is that the patient has poor impulse control. He gets into physical altercations with his father as well as others at the football game. Patient also displays violence by throwing books out windows, speaking loudly and aggressively. One short-term goal is that within 2 weeks, the client will recognize signs of increasing anxiety and agitation and report to staff for assistance with intervention. A long-term goal is that the client will not harm self or others. One nursing intervention is to maintain low level of stimuli in client's environment. For example, low lighting, few people, simple decor, and low noise level. The rationale behind this is that anxiety and agitation rise in a stimulating environment. A suspicious, agitated client may perceive others as threatening.
The second nursing diagnosis for Pat is ineffective individual coping, related to inability to properly react to stressors, as evidenced by outbreak in the therapist's office after being triggered, and outbreak due to the inability of him to find his wedding video. The assessment is that the client is triggered by external factors and does not have the proper coping abilities to function with society. His wedding song is what triggers his aggressive and abnormal behavior. A short-term goal is Pat being able to identify 3 coping strategies that are successful within a week. A long-term goal is that Pat will demonstrate the ability to cope effectively without resorting to past actions. An intervention would be assessing the client's level of anxiety and to not be judgmental or verbalize disapproval of the behavior. A rationale would be recognition of precipitating factors is the first step in teaching the client to interrupt the escalating anxiety, and to deny client this activity may precipitate panic level of anxiety. The third nursing diagnosis for Pat is insomnia, related to excessive hyperactivity, as evidenced by inability to fall asleep, active during the night, and racing thoughts. The assessment is the client is up until 3 and 4 a.m. fully active. He does not show signs of tiredness or fatigue. He disrupts his household and the neighborhood in the middle of the night and does not have the ability to get a healthy amount of sleep. A short-term goal is within 5 days, the client will be able to sleep for about 4 to 6 hours without awakening. And a long-term goal is for Pat to be able to sleep for an 8-hour period without waking up. An intervention can be providing a quiet environment with a low level of stimulation, or monitoring sleep patterns, providing a structured schedule of activities that includes established times for naps and rest. The rationale is hyperactivity increases ability to achieve sleep and rest are hindered in a stimulating environment. Accurate baseline data are important in planning care to help client with this problem. A structured schedule, including time for naps, will help the hyperactive client achieve much-needed rest. The fourth nursing diagnosis for Pat is disturbed thought process related to obsession with his wife, as evidenced by delusion of getting back together with his wife. The assessment is that the client misinterprets the relationship status with his wife and obsesses about getting back together with her despite the restraining order that she has against him. A short-term goal is within 1 week, the client will be able to recognize and verbalize when thinking is not reality-based. A long-term goal is the client's verbalizations will reflect reality-based thinking with no evidence of delusional ideation. An intervention is convey acceptance of the client's need for the false belief while letting him know that you do not share the delusion, and do not argue or deny the belief. A rationale is a positive response would convey to the client that you accepted the delusion as a reality. Arguing with the client or denying the belief serves no useful purpose because delusional ideas are not eliminated by this approach.
This is the concept map for Pat. It brings together his 4 nursing diagnoses and shows how each diagnosis has an effect on the other. Some of the signs and symptoms are overlapping between the 4 diagnoses. Pat's most important diagnosis is that he is a risk for violence. His disturbed thought process leads him to be violent because the delusions he has trigger him. When he has these delusions, he becomes angry, manic, and aggressive because he is unable to cope with his emotions, which is the second diagnosis. He does not react appropriately. His delusions and manic episodes keep him up at night because he is constantly thinking. Also, the insomnia may cause his delusions to worsen because his ability to think isn't as clear when he is up all night active.
One ethical legal issue that is portrayed in the movie involves the therapist Dr. Patel. The relationship between Dr. Patel and Pat becomes problematic. He intentionally provokes Pat by playing a song that reminds him of a traumatic event. Later in the film, Dr. Patel completely abandons his professional role in favoring of joining with Pat as a crazy Eagles fan. In the video here, you can notice that after the game had ended, Dr. Patel is seen sitting in the living room of Pat's home.
Shit, the Asian invasion. Every week.
Now. Jake, you better get your brother.
Cuckoo bird, take it off.
Dr. Patel!
That's bad! Hey. What are you doing here?
You know, we must beat the Giants, my brother.
I'm not supposed to be seeing you, right? Outside the office? No. Is that illegal? What?
Today, I'm your brother in green, not your therapist. I'm so happy to see you.
Wonderful that you're here. Hey, Jake, this is Cliff. This is my Dr. Cliff. Look,
This is an example of a physician crossing the boundaries with a client. Pat even says to Dr. Patel, "I'm not supposed to be seeing you outside the office. Is this illegal?" Then Dr. Patel responds with saying, "Today I'm your brother in green, not your therapist."